Hello, I'm Patrick Fox with Fox Painting, and I'm starting this channel to show you more of what I do, and maybe it will help you out in your future endeavors of painting. But I wanted to show you this job that I'm working on right now. It's a log cabin house. We're in Tennessee right now. We're in Chattanooga area, and they have made this cabin of pine. You can see the ceiling here is what all these walls look like prior to me priming it, right? And so they wanted to change just the majority of this room into some color so it feels more warm and welcoming when they enter, so that they can have a nice family setting that doesn't feel as cold and dry. So they hired me to paint this, and now we're going to be looking at what we did here on the walls. One tip I would say when you have a log cabin, the house is always shifting, right? And so the cracks here in between these planks of wood are going to be constantly moving, right? So they said, we were suggesting not to caulk in between the lines, because if you do caulk, it's probably going to tear at some point in the future. So we want to make sure that it doesn't come with high maintenance after we leave the job. So also, I wanted to say I made a couple mistakes with primers, and I found out what primer worked to hide the tannins and the bleed through here. And one of the primers that I found here was this Kills primer, the Restoration. I tried it out, I tested it. Before this, I'd used the water-based, just a Zinsser 123 primer, the water-based, and that didn't work. The bleed through was coming through, and then when I tested the paint over it, the bleed through was coming through the primer and the paint. But when I tested this out, it looked at first like the bleed through was coming through the primer, but then I did the true test and I put the paint over it, and it goes to show that this stuff actually blocked the tannins and did not come through the paint. So this primer did work, and now we're about to apply the paint. So I just wanted to explain to you what the tannins and the bleed through looks like right here. As you can see, this plank right here is fairly white, and this plank right here looks yellowish. That's the tannins coming through from the wood stain through the paint. If we don't seal those out, they will come through your top coat of paint, and you'll see this difference right here. And you don't want to see that. That's gonna look terrible, right? So we gotta block that out. And again, this paint blocked it out for me on this job. It may not work for every job, so when you test it, it's important just to buy a quart or a gallon of the primer. And what you can do is carefully knock off the lid, carefully dip your brush so that you don't get any paint on the rim, because you want to be able to return it if it doesn't work, right? So you just take it a little bit on the wall, and you're seeing, especially on this yellow part, if it bleeds through or not. And then after it dries, you want to put the paint over it, because it may look like it's bleeding through on the primer, but when you put the paint over it, you may find out that the primer actually sealed the tannin back. So you have to check it in this regard. And if it didn't work, carefully put the lid back on and you can go return it. That's what I did here. If you look closely, I don't know if you can see the difference, if you can get close here. This was the original primer that I put on here. You can see the bleed through, right? You can see the difference, that it's really coming through the tannins here. And then I put this primer above it, right? The Kills Restoration that I showed you earlier. This is what I put above it. You can see there's a difference here. You see that difference? You can see that clearly. And what I did over here on this strip was I painted, this is the top coat of paint, all the way down to here. All the way down to here, all right? So when you're looking at this now, when you're looking at the paint only, the top coat of paint here, on this primer, my original primer, you can see that it's bleeding through on the paint. Now compare that to the paint up here on this primer. You can see that edge right here, how it's whiter and more pure color. It blocked the tannins that were coming through the original primer. So this is how we test it, and hopefully that will help you in your future endeavors to test primer on pine or any tannins on any kind of wood project that you're painting. One more thing I wanted to mention is some people might have a question of how many coats of primer do I put on? This is only one coat over the original coat that bled through. So I went and primed this whole place in one coat, all right? If you have a primer that works, you wanna use one that will do a one coat job. Obviously there are circumstances you may run into, X factors I always call them on every job, where you're gonna find out that maybe 2 coats is necessary. But you always wanna work smarter and not harder on these jobs, which will save you money and time in the end. And so try to find one that will do the job in one coat. Okay. So after we're done priming, you have 1 or 2 coats, whatever works here. One coat was working for me good here. So after this, we're gonna put on the top coat. We're gonna be using Duration Interior Matte Finish. This is from Sherwin-Williams. And the Keels was from Home Depot. You can get it also at Lowe's or probably any kind of painting store around. But we're gonna put 2 coats of top coat on this. They chose an off-white. They're using the color Alabaster, which is a very popular off-white. A little bit of a warm tone to it. Kind of got a little yellowish gold in it, but it's very subtle. It's very nice. It's gonna go well with the pine, and the feel is just gonna flow together. And so we have to make this a really light color. That's why it's very important that you do get the right primer, and that we do put 2 top coats on so that it finishes well and everything looks sheen and pristine with the final coat. So we wanna make the clients happy. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell below. If I have not answered any of your questions, please comment below and I will get to them. And until next time.